Hera stepped off the shimmering platform of the Urayan transport, her luminous eyes adjusting to the cacophony of colors and sounds that was New York City. The air was thick with the scent of human industry, a far cry from the floral breezes of her home world. She wrinkled her nose slightly, but her curiosity was piqued. Humans, those primitive creatures she had laughed at, lived in such chaos and yet thrived. Beside her, Stephen Powell, the human diplomat assigned to guide her, was already speaking, his tone a blend of condescension and politeness that grated on her nerves. "Welcome to Earth, Princess Hera. I trust your journey was comfortable." Hera nodded curtly, her attention diverted by the towering skyscrapers and the bustling streets filled with humans going about their lives. It was so different from Uwara, where harmony and order reigned supreme. Here, it was as if the city itself was alive, pulsating with an energy she had never encountered. As they walked towards the waiting limousine, Hera's gaze was drawn to a group of men, laughing loudly outside a nearby bar. One of them, tall with a rugged demeanor and a confident stride, caught her eye. He exuded a raw sexuality and boldness that was both foreign and fascinating to her. Stephen followed her gaze and smirked. "Ah, I see you've spotted our local charm. That's Roger? Quite the character, isn't he?" Roger, noticing her gaze, raised an eyebrow and offered a roguish smile. Hera felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. She quickly looked away, but the image of his confident swagger lingered in her mind. As the limousine navigated through the streets, Stephen droned on about their schedule and the cultural exchange mission's objectives. Hera listened with half an ear, her thoughts returning to the man she had seen. She had come here to laugh at humans, but already she was beginning to see something intriguing. Their arrival at the hotel was marked by a flurry of activity. Reporters snapped photos, and dignitaries greeted her with rehearsed smiles. Hera maintained her regal composure, though inside she was still absorbing the sensory overload of this new world. In her suite, as she prepared for the evening's welcome gala, Hera couldn't shake the image of Roger from her mind. She was here to observe and learn, but she hadn't anticipated being so captivated by the very beings she had deemed primitive. That night, under the dazzling lights of the gala, Hera would begin her journey of discovery, a journey that would challenge her beliefs, test her loyalties, and forever alter the course of her life and the fate of her world. The music thrummed through Hera's body as she entered the club, the bass line resonating with her heartbeat. The club was a riot of colors and movement, with humans dancing, laughing, and losing themselves in the night. Roger had promised her an authentic experience of human nightlife, and so far it was living up to his boast. Roger led her to the bar, his hand lightly on the small of her back, a touch that sent a shiver up her spine. "What do you think, Princess? A bit different from Uwara, isn't it?" Hera nodded, taking in the scene. "It's intoxicating," she admitted. "The energy here is palpable." He grinned, signaling the bartender. 2 shots of the best tequila he ordered, his eyes never leaving hers. "You up for it?" Hera raised an eyebrow. "Is this another test of human endurance?" Roger laughed. "Something like that. It's all part of the experience." The bartender placed 2 small glasses of amber liquid in front of them. Roger picked up his glass and held it out to her. "To new experiences." Hera picked up her glass, feeling the coolness of the glass and the warmth of Roger's gaze. "To new experiences," she echoed, clinking her glass against his. The liquid burned as it went down, a fire spreading through her chest. Hera coughed slightly, but Roger's laughter and the encouraging cheers from the people around them made her smile. It was a raw, unfiltered moment, so unlike the measured and controlled interactions of her world. As the night wore on, Hera found herself dancing with Roger, the music and the crowd blurring into a haze of sensation. She felt alive in a way she never had before, each moment a thrilling unknown. Roger's confidence was infectious, his boldness a stark contrast to the reserved nature of her own people. When they finally stepped out into the cool night air, Hera's head was spinning, not just from the alcohol but from the sheer intensity of the experience. Roger looked at her, his expression softer now, more thoughtful. "You did great tonight, Hera. I'm glad you came out with me." She smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the tequila. "Thank you, Roger. This has been enlightening." He chuckled. "Just wait. There's a lot more to humanity than what you've seen so far." As they walked back to her hotel, Hara couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this world had in store for her. She had come to laugh at humans, but now she found herself wanting to understand them, to explore the depths of their chaotic, vibrant existence. And at the center of it all was Roger, a puzzle she was eager to solve. The diplomatic reception was a stark contrast to the wild energy of the nightclub. Held in the opulent ballroom of the Russian embassy, it was a gathering of dignitaries, politicians, and cultural representatives from across the globe. Hara, dressed in traditional Urayan attire, moved through the crowd with grace, though her mind was still buzzing from her night out with Roger. Stephen Powell, ever the picture of diplomatic propriety, introduced her to various officials, his demeanor a careful mix of charm and formality. Hara smiled and nodded, but her attention was drawn to the figure at the center of the room, commanding attention with his presence alone. Alexei Ivanov, the Russian ambassador, was a tall man with piercing blue eyes and a commanding presence. As Stephen led her over to meet him, Hara felt a curious mix of anticipation and apprehension. "Princess Hara, may I introduce Ambassador Alexei Ivanov," Stephen said, his tone deferential. Alexei extended his hand, his grip firm and warm. "Princess Hara, it is an honor to meet you. I have heard much about your mission." Hara inclined her head. "The honor is mine, Ambassador. I am eager to learn more about your world." Alexei's smile was genuine, his eyes studying her with an intensity that was both unsettling and intriguing. "And I yours. Perhaps we could discuss it over a drink." Stephen's eyes flickered with a hint of jealousy, but he maintained his diplomatic facade. "Of course, Ambassador. I'm sure Princess Hara would be delighted." As they moved to a quieter corner of the room, Hera felt the weight of Alexei's gaze. There was something about him that drew her in, a magnetism that was different from Roger's raw charm. Alexei was controlled, calculated, but there was a fire in his eyes that spoke of passion and strength. They spoke of their worlds, of the differences and similarities, and Hara found herself drawn to his insights and perspectives. Alexei's understanding of politics and culture was deep, his views on the potential for cooperation between their species both hopeful and realistic. As the evening wore on, Hara felt a growing respect for Alexei. He was a formidable ally, one who could help bridge the gap between their worlds. But there was also an undeniable attraction, a pull that she couldn't ignore. When the reception finally came to an end, Alexei took her hand, his touch lingering. "I look forward to our next meeting, Princess. There is much we can achieve together." Hara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "Yes, Ambassador, I believe there is." As she returned to her hotel, Hara couldn't help but think of the two men who had already made such an impact on her. Roger with his unbridled confidence and charm, and Alexei with his strength and intelligence. Both were drawing her into the complex world of humanity, and she was eager to see where this journey would lead. Hara's growing fascination with humans was not without its consequences. Back on Uera, her actions and associations were being closely monitored by the hardline factions, led by General Mark. His disdain for humans was well known, and he saw Hara's interest as a direct threat to Uera's purity and isolationist stance. General Mark convened a council meeting, his voice resonating with authority. "Princess Hara's actions are compromising the integrity of our world. We cannot allow her to bring human influence into Uera." The council members, a mix of traditionalists and progressives, were divided. Some saw the potential for cooperation and growth, while others feared the dilution of their culture and values. Meanwhile, on Earth, conservative groups were also voicing their concerns. Protests erupted outside the Urayan embassy, with signs and chants denouncing the cultural exchange. The media buzzed with debates, and the tension was palpable. Roger and Alexei, both aware of the growing unrest, worked tirelessly to support Hera. They attended meetings, spoke at forums, and did their best to counter the negative narratives. But the opposition was strong, and it was clear that they were facing an uphill battle. One evening, as Hara was reviewing reports in her hotel suite, there was a knock on the door. She opened it to find Roger standing there, a grim expression on his face. "There's something you need to see," he said, leading her to a news broadcast. The screen showed footage of a violent clash between protesters and security forces outside the embassy. The situation was escalating, and it was clear that things were spiraling out of control. Hara felt a pang of guilt and frustration. She had come here to build bridges, not to create division. but the resistance to change was stronger than she had anticipated. Roger placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll get through this, Hera. We just have to keep pushing forward." Hera nodded, drawing strength from his determination. But, as the days passed, the pressure continued to mount. The protests grew more intense, and the hostility from General Mark and his followers became more overt. It was during this turbulent time that Hera received an urgent message from Uara. Her presence was demanded at a council meeting to address her actions and the rising tensions. Hera knew that her fate and the future of the cultural exchange hung in the balance. As she prepared to return to Uara, Hera felt a deep sense of resolve. She would not back down. She believed in the potential for cooperation and understanding between their worlds, and she was determined to fight for it, no matter the cost. The journey back to Uara was fraught with tension. Hera knew that she was walking into a storm, but she was prepared to face it head-on. Upon her arrival, she was immediately summoned to the council chambers, where General Mark awaited her with a stern expression. "Hera, your actions have endangered the very fabric of our society," Mark began, his voice cold. "You have aligned yourself with primitives and brought their influence into our world. This cannot be tolerated." Hera met his gaze, unflinching. "I believe in the potential for cooperation between our species. Humans are not the enemies you make them out to be. We can learn from each other and grow stronger together." Mark's eyes narrowed. "You are naive, Princess. They are a threat to our purity, our way of life. And your actions have only served to embolden them." The council was divided, but the majority sided with Mark. Hera was censured, her mission deemed a failure, but before she could fully process the implications, she received word that Alexei had been ambushed and seriously wounded. Hera's heart raced as she rushed to his side. The sight of Alexei, pale and unconscious, filled her with a fierce determination. This attack was not just a personal assault, it was an attempt to undermine everything she had been working towards. Roger, who had accompanied her back to Uara, stood by her side, his jaw clenched in anger. "This was Mark's doing. He won't stop until he's destroyed any chance of peace between our worlds." Hera nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we must stop him. We cannot let his hatred dictate our future." Together, they began to gather allies, those who believed in their vision of cooperation. Human and Uaraean forces united in secret, planning their next move. The discovery of ancient ruins, which hinted at a historical cooperation between their species, gave them a powerful tool to challenge Mark's isolationist doctrine. As they delved deeper into the ruins, they uncovered hidden temples and relics that told a story of a time when humans and Uaraeans had worked together for mutual benefit. This revelation strengthened their resolve and provided the evidence they needed to rally more support. But Mark was not idle. His forces were preparing to launch a terraforming weapon against Earth, a devastating act that would ignite a full-scale war. Hera and her allies raced against time to neutralize the weapon and prevent a catastrophe. The battle that ensued was fierce and desperate. Hera fought with a ferocity born of conviction, her skills as a warrior tested to their limits. Roger and their allies stood by her side, their determination unwavering. In the end, they succeeded in neutralizing the weapon and defeating Mark's forces. The cost was high, with many sacrifices made along the way, but their victory was a turning point, forcing the Emperor of Uara to acknowledge the need for cautious cooperation with humans. As the dust settled, Hera knew that their journey was far from over. Extremist groups on both sides still resisted the changes, and new threats loomed on the horizon. But she was more determined than ever to build a future where humans and Uaraeans could stand together, united by their shared hopes and dreams. The victory over General Mark and the neutralization of the terraforming weapon marked a new chapter in Hera's mission. But the path to lasting peace was fraught with challenges. Extremist groups on both sides saw the budding cooperation as a threat to their way of life and were determined to undermine it. Hera, Roger, and their allies worked tirelessly to counter these threats. They formed a task force, combining the strengths and resources of both humans and Uaraeans. Their goal was to root out the extremists and prevent further attacks, but it was a daunting task. One evening, as Hera was reviewing intelligence reports, she received a message from an old ally. It was cryptic, but it hinted at a hidden faction within Uara that was sympathetic to their cause. Intrigued, Hera decided to investigate. With Roger and a small team, Hera traveled to a remote part of Uara, following the clues from the message. They discovered a hidden enclave, where a group of Urayans had been preserving the ancient knowledge of their cooperation with humans. These scholars and warriors welcomed Hera and pledged their support. Their leader, an elder named Saren, showed Hera a series of ancient texts and artifacts that detailed the long-forgotten alliance between their species. "We have always believed that our future lies in cooperation, not isolation," Saren said. "You are the one who can bring that vision to life." Buoyed by this new support, Hera and her allies intensified their efforts. They began to spread the word, using the ancient texts and artifacts to challenge the hardline narrative. Slowly but surely, they gained more followers both on Ura and Earth. But the extremists were not idle. They launched a series of terrorist attacks targeting key figures and infrastructure. The situation grew increasingly volatile, with both sides suffering casualties. Hera and Alexei, who had recovered from his injuries, worked closely together to thwart these threats. Their bond grew stronger, a mix of professional respect and personal affection. They knew that their mission was more important than ever, as the extremists' actions threatened to plunge their worlds into chaos. One night, as they were reviewing plans for a major operation, Alexei turned to Hera. "We need to find the source of their funding and support. If we can cut that off, we can cripple their operations." Hera nodded. "Agreed. We have to be strategic. Every move we make could tip the balance." Their investigation led them to a shadowy figure known only as the Broker, who was supplying the extremists with weapons and resources. Hera and Alexei devised a plan to infiltrate his operation and gather the evidence they needed to expose and dismantle his network. The mission was perilous, involving deep cover and high-stakes espionage. Hera and Alexei faced numerous dangers, but their determination and skills saw them through. They uncovered a web of corruption and betrayal that reached into the highest levels of both their societies. With the evidence in hand, they launched a coordinated operation to take down the Broker and his network. The operation was a success, dealing a significant blow to the extremists and turning the tide in their favor. But the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, and the threat of retaliation loomed large. Hera knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but she was more determined than ever to see it through. As she looked out over the city, now bathed in the light of a new dawn, Hera felt a renewed sense of hope. Together they had proven that cooperation was possible. Now they had to build on that foundation and create a future where humans and Urayans could thrive together. Despite their successes, the resistance to Hera's mission was unyielding. The hardline factions on Ura, emboldened by their setbacks, launched a smear campaign against her. They painted her as a traitor, accusing her of endangering their world by fraternizing with humans. The council, swayed by the hardliners' rhetoric, convened an emergency session. Hera stood before them, defiant and resolute, as they declared her exiled from Ura. The decision was a blow, but Hera knew she could not abandon her mission. Roger, Alexei, and their allies stood by her side, pledging their support. "We will continue," Roger said firmly. "We won't let them stop us." Hera nodded, her resolve hardening. "We have to keep fighting. For the future of both our worlds." With her exile, Hera's mission took on a new urgency. She and her team went underground, operating in secret to uncover more about the ancient cooperation between their species. They traveled to remote parts of Ura, seeking out hidden temples and relics that held the key to their shared history. Their journey was fraught with danger, as they were constantly pursued by Mark's forces. But with each discovery, their resolve grew stronger. They found evidence of a time when humans and Urayans had worked together to achieve great things, a history that had been deliberately buried by the hardline factions. One of their most significant finds was an ancient temple, hidden deep in the mountains. Inside, they discovered a mural depicting a great alliance between their ancestors. The mural showed humans and Urayans standing side by side, united in purpose. As they studied the mural, Saren, the elder who had joined their cause, explained its significance. "This temple was built to commemorate a great victory. Our ancestors faced a threat that neither of our species could overcome alone. They united, and together they triumphed." Hera felt a surge of hope. This is what we need to show our people. We have to remind them of our shared history and the strength that comes from unity. With renewed determination, they began to disseminate their findings, using every means at their disposal. They shared the ancient texts and artifacts with scholars and leaders on both worlds, challenging the hardline narrative and planting seeds of doubt in the minds of the people. Their efforts began to bear fruit. Slowly, attitudes started to shift. More and more people came to see the potential for cooperation and the benefits of working together. The hardliners, sensing the tide turning against them, grew more desperate. In a final bid to regain control, General Mark and his followers launched a full-scale attack on the hidden enclave where Hara and her allies were based. The battle was fierce and brutal, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Hara fought with everything she had, her skills and determination pushed to their limits. Roger and Alexei were by her side, their bond stronger than ever. Together they managed to hold off the attackers long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The victory was hard-won, but it was a turning point. With Mark's forces defeated and the evidence of their shared history widely known, the hardline faction's grip on power began to weaken. As the dust settled, Hera knew that their fight was far from over. There were still many challenges ahead, and the extremists would not give up easily, but she was more determined than ever to see her mission through. With the support of her allies, Hera continued to work towards a future where humans and Urayans could stand together, united by their shared history and their shared dreams. And as she looked out over the city, now bathed in the light of a new dawn, she felt a renewed sense of hope for what lay ahead. The defeat of General Mark and the dissemination of the ancient findings had a profound impact on both Uara and Earth. However, the hardline factions were not ready to concede defeat. In a desperate bid to retain power, they devised a plan that threatened the very existence of both worlds, a terraforming weapon capable of catastrophic destruction. Hara, Roger, and Alexei worked tirelessly to uncover the details of the weapon and devise a plan to neutralize it. Their efforts were complicated by the ever-present threat of extremist attacks and the political tensions that still simmered. As they gathered intelligence, it became clear that the weapon was hidden in a remote and heavily fortified base on Uara. The base was under the control of Mark's loyalists, and infiltrating it would be a daunting task. With a carefully assembled team of human and Urarian operatives, Hara led a covert mission to the base. The journey was perilous, with their every move shadowed by enemy forces, but their determination and resolve saw them through. The base was a fortress, guarded by the best soldiers and equipped with advanced technology. Hara and her team had to use every ounce of their skill and ingenuity to breach its defenses. They moved through the shadows, neutralizing guards and disabling security systems. As they made their way deeper into the base, they encountered fierce resistance. The hardliners were determined to protect their weapon, and the battle that ensued was intense and brutal. Hera fought with a ferocity born of desperation, knowing that the fate of both worlds hung in the balance. In the heart of the base, they found the terraforming weapon, a massive device capable of unleashing untold destruction. Hara and her team worked quickly to disable it, but time was running out. The hardliners, realizing their defeat was imminent, launched a final, desperate attack. In the chaos that followed, Alexei was critically wounded. Despite his injuries, he continued to fight, his determination unwavering. He and Hara worked together to neutralize the weapon, their bond stronger than ever in the face of adversity. As the weapon was finally deactivated, the base began to collapse. Hara and her team barely escaped with their lives, carrying the injured Alexei to safety. The victory was hard-won, but it was a crucial turning point in their fight for peace. With the terraforming weapon neutralized and Mark's forces defeated, the Emperor of Uara had no choice but to acknowledge the need for cooperation with humans. The hardliners' power was broken, and a new era of cautious collaboration began. But the victory came at a heavy price. Alexei's injuries were severe, and despite their best efforts, he succumbed to his wounds. His sacrifice was a devastating blow to Hera, but it also strengthened her resolve to see their mission through. As Hara stood by Alexei's grave, she vowed to honor his memory by continuing their fight for a better future. The journey ahead would be difficult, but she was more determined than ever to build a world where humans and Urayans could stand together, united by their shared hopes and dreams. The defeat of the hardliners and the neutralization of the terraforming weapon marked the beginning of a new era for Uara and Earth. The Emperor's cautious endorsement of cooperation signaled a significant shift in policy, but the path to lasting peace was still fraught with challenges. Extremist groups on both sides continued to resist the changes, launching terrorist attacks and assassination attempts to undermine the fragile peace. Hara, now a symbol of hope and resilience, worked tirelessly to counter these threats and build a foundation for a united future. With the support of Roger and their allies, Hera focused on strengthening the bonds between their worlds. They organized cultural exchanges, joint scientific ventures, and diplomatic missions, all aimed at fostering understanding and cooperation. One of their most ambitious projects was the creation of a joint research facility dedicated to exploring the ancient history of their species' cooperation. The facility, built on the site of the ancient temple they had discovered, became a beacon of hope and a symbol of their shared aspirations. But the extremists were relentless. They launched a series of coordinated attacks, targeting key figures and infrastructure. The situation grew increasingly volatile, and Hera knew that they had to act decisively to prevent a full-scale conflict. In a bold move, Hera and Roger orchestrated a high-profile summit, bringing together leaders from both worlds to discuss their shared future. The summit was a tense affair, with security measures at their highest and the threat of violence ever present. As the summit began, Hera stood before the assembled leaders, her voice steady and resolute. "We stand at a crossroads. We can choose to let fear and hatred dictate our future, or we can embrace the possibilities of cooperation and understanding. The choice is ours." Her words resonated with many, but the extremists were not deterred. In a daring and desperate move, they launched an attack on the summit, attempting to assassinate the leaders and ignite a war. Hera, Roger, and their security forces sprang into action, neutralizing the attackers and securing the summit. The incident, though frightening, served to galvanize support for their mission. The leaders, moved by Hera's bravery and determination, pledged their commitment to the cause of peace. In the aftermath of the attack, Hera and her allies redoubled their efforts. They worked tirelessly to root out the extremist factions and bring their leaders to justice. The process was long and arduous, but slowly the tide began to turn. As peace took hold, Hera felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, but they had succeeded in laying the groundwork for a brighter future. The bonds between their worlds were stronger than ever, and the promise of cooperation and understanding was within reach. Standing on the steps of the research facility, now bustling with activity and hope, Hera looked out over the horizon. The path ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face whatever challenges came their way. With Roger by her side and the support of their allies, she was determined to build a future where humans and Uranians could stand together, united by their shared hopes and dreams. Just as the promise of peace seemed within reach, a new and terrifying threat emerged. Extremist factions, desperate to reclaim their power, had developed a biological weapon capable of devastating both UR and Earth. The weapon, a deadly virus engineered to target both species, threatened to undo all the progress they had made. Hera, Roger, and their allies worked tirelessly to uncover the details of the weapon and devise a plan to neutralize it. Their investigation led them to a secret laboratory hidden deep within Uara's most remote regions. The mission to infiltrate the laboratory was perilous. The facility was heavily guarded, and the extremists were prepared to defend it at all costs. Hera and her team, including a now recovered Alexei, had to use every ounce of their skill and ingenuity to breach its defenses. Inside, they discovered the horrifying extent of the extremists' plans. The virus was nearly ready for deployment, and the extremists were poised to release it, hoping to spark a war that would allow them to seize control. In a desperate race against time, Hera and her team worked to disable the weapon and secure the virus samples. The battle that ensued was intense, with lives hanging in the balance. Alexei, despite his injuries, fought with a fierce determination, his resolve unyielding. As they reached the heart of the laboratory, Hera and Alexei faced off against the extremist leader, a ruthless figure determined to see their plan succeed. The confrontation was brutal, with both sides sustaining heavy casualties. In a final, selfless act, Alexei sacrificed himself to ensure the mission's success. He fought off the extremists long enough for Hera and the team to secure the virus samples and initiate the decontamination protocols. With the virus neutralized and the laboratory destroyed, Hera and her team emerged victorious, but the cost was high. Alexei's sacrifice weighed heavily on Hera, a stark reminder of the price they had paid for peace. In the aftermath, Hera was tasked with overseeing the brutal decontamination protocols necessary to combat the effects of the biological weapon. The process was grueling, but essential to ensure the safety of both species. Despite the heavy price and personal loss, Hara was more determined than ever to build a future where humans and Urarayans could coexist in peace. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but she was ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Standing at the site of Alexi's memorial, Hera made a silent vow to honor his memory by continuing their fight for a better future. With the support of Roger and their allies, she was determined to build a world where humans and Urarayans could stand together, united by their shared hopes and dreams. The road to lasting peace was long and fraught with challenges, but Hera, Roger, and their allies never wavered. Their efforts to foster cooperation and understanding between Uwara and Earth began to bear fruit, with joint projects and cultural exchanges flourishing. The research facility, now a symbol of their shared aspirations, continued to uncover the rich history of cooperation between their species. Scholars, scientists, and diplomats from both worlds worked together, building a foundation for a united future. Hera, now a respected leader and symbol of hope, continued to advocate for peace and cooperation. She traveled between Uwara and Earth, forging alliances and strengthening bonds. Her determination and resilience inspired many, and her vision of a united future became a guiding light for both worlds. Roger, by her side through every challenge, played a crucial role in bridging the gap between their species. His unwavering support and steadfast commitment to their mission made him an invaluable ally and partner. As they stood together on the steps of the research facility, now a bustling hub of activity and hope, Hera felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had faced incredible odds and endured unimaginable losses, but they had succeeded in building a foundation for a brighter future. The journey was far from over, and there would undoubtedly be more challenges ahead. But Hera was ready to face them, confident in the strength of their bond and the resilience of their shared dreams. With Roger by her side and the support of their allies, Hera looked out over the horizon, filled with hope for what lay ahead. Together, they would continue to build a world where humans and Urarayans could stand together, united by their shared hopes and dreams. And so, the story of Hera, Roger, and their allies came to be remembered as a testament to the power of cooperation, resilience, and the unyielding belief in a brighter future for all.